Now we have the our third speaker for the day. Okay, good afternoon once again. Hello,
Hello. Yes, ma'am.
sir. Am I audible to you?
Yes, ma'am. Certainly.
Okay, good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon.
So, good afternoon to all the participants again. Dr. Lalit Thakur, speaker for this third session, is already with us. Thank you, sir, for joining us. Sir has designed and conduct. Sir has designed and conducted various undergraduate and postgraduate labs along with implementation of use of geotechnical software and Excel spreadsheet based software. Sir is having 20 plus years of wide experience in teaching. He has also planned and instruct at undergraduate and postgraduate level in geotechnical subject, also at undergraduate level in applied mechanics and strength of material. Sir has published various papers in international journals as well as national journals and national conferences and international conferences. Sir, we are obliged to have you here. Sir is Associate Professor and Head at Civil Engineering Department at BITS, Vadodara. I welcome you on behalf of AP Shah Institute of Technology and Civil Engineering Department. Sir is going to deliver the session on development and application of smart conductive textiles in ground improvement. Sir, over to you.
Uh, Thank you. I would like to thank all the organizers for giving me this opportunity to deliver whatever small amount of knowledge I have been able to gather within these years of my teaching and research. My today's topic, as you can see, is on development and application of. Is it visible?
Yes, sir, it's visible.
Okay, just a minute. Design and development of smart conductive geotextiles in ground improvement. Okay. And we'll be looking into the following topics. Textiles, first of all, what are textiles? Then we'll go into what are medical textiles. The reason being, I need to look into some properties of which, some of which are required in conductive textiles. Then we'll go on to generalized geotextiles. Then go on to specifically conductive geotextiles. Then their utilization when we use the process of electrokinetics and their specific applications in civil engineering for ground improvement. Okay. On the forefront, I would like to thank all my gurus and core workers who have directly or indirectly helped me to put up this work in the present. Sources of photos or any details are given here for. Any change in that is specifically mentioned on the slide itself also. I would very clearly mention to you that this PPT will be shared to you after the presentation. I'll be putting in a PDF file to the organizers and then they'll be sharing it to you. So no need of punching in between in the chat whether this will be available to you or not. So I'm being very clear. This will be shared to you for sure. Some part of it may be restricted for research purposes. Otherwise, everything else will be shared to you at the end of the session. Okay, so a textile basically is anything which is woven, knitted, knotted, or tufted cloth, or a non-woven fabric, which is made out of fibers. Now, as you all know, fibers can be in different forms, and that is why I have used a general word of fibers here. And when we go on specifically to the topic, we'll be changing these words to very specific words for the given electrokinetic geosynthetics. Textiles have traditionally meant a woven fabric to us, and there have been some instances of non-woven fabrics being found in Middle East, Asia, or China, but they have not been used for any clothing purposes, but have been used for some other purposes of irrigation and farming. A textile is basically made from fiber or any other extended linear material, which is known as a yarn or a thread. Why do I specifically say this for a textile is there are a lot of people who then ask me at the end of the session that what do you consider fiberglass as? Fiberglass is not a textile. It is basically dispersion of fibers into another matrix, which is basically a resin, with a hardener, and it becomes a composite material. So that is why I'm being very clear. You have to consider it to be a thread or a yarn which is extended in linear form in either one direction or multiple directions for it to be called as a textile. So fiberglass is not called as a textile, but is called as a composite material. Now, yarn fabrics or tools, if you are talking of anything woven, have been found in somewhere like 5000 BC before Christ. And there have been good examples of woolen textiles being woven during the Bronze Age in Scandinavia also. And if you talk of pure cotton, then there have been proofs enough for cotton being spun and woven in India before 3000 BC, and of instances of silk being woven into cloth during China in 1000 BC. So textiles are really a very uh, old known material to us. But now what we are doing is modifying these textiles for our needs for the present day generation. So if you talk about textile, these are the 9 stages into which you create a textile. You have the raw fiber, which is the basic fiber like cotton or anything of that sort. Then you card it or comb it to form a continuous cleared fiber. Then you go on to a spinning machine where you spin it into a continuous thread or a yarn. Then you wind it over blubbers. Then you do a rewinding to increase the strength of the yarn. Then you do the knitting. This knitting could be on a handloom or could be on big mechanized machines. Then you have a finishing, which may basically require cutting off or sealing of the ends. And then you have forming and packaging, which is basically in whatever form the textile is to be given or marketed in the market. Next comes in your basics of medical textiles. Now, medical textiles are basically any textile technology combined with medical sciences, which is now known as medical textiles. And you have a large amount of scope of medical textiles at present. The best example being the use of a stent when you have a heart attack or when you have a blockage. So that is the best example you can think of a medical textile. It could be a coated stent, it could be an uncoated stent. So that coating, etc., is a different part of healthcare textiles, but the textile remains in the form of a stent. And it is one of the most rapidly expanding sector. The latest being at present somewhere like 1.5 or 2 years back is a textile being formed into a one-way valve for our heart. Initially, what we had was a titanium valve which was replaced in our heart. At present, they are working on they have started manufacturing it, and only some um, tests are remaining on human bodies for testing of a medical textile based valve being placed in our hearts. Now, if you talk of fibers being used in medical applications, you have two methods. One is a commodity fiber and another is a specialty fiber. If you talk of commodity fibers, these are generalized commodity fibers which we use in our day-to-day lives. That is cotton, silk, viscose, polyester, polypropylene. These we'll also be talking when we talk about conductive geotextiles for our cases in civil engineering. If you talk of specialty fibers, we have calcium malignate, which is basically obtained from brown seaweed, or collagen, which is basically obtained from animal skin. At present, collagen is not being used in any of conductive geotextiles in civil engineering, but there has been some instances of using of calcium malignate from brown seed for some conductive textiles for generation of a good grass field onto playgrounds. So they are conductive as well as have a coating of calcium malignate, which allows them to give a good growth tissue to grass. Now, if you look into the requirements of medical textiles, whatever is in white is not of interest to us, but whatever is in black is of greater interest to when we talk of civil engineering applications. The first thing being a good dimensional stability and elasticity, so that when I'm using those textiles on field, I do not have any chances of rupture or tearing of that textile. Neither do I have any change in the dimensions of the structure or the structure of the textile or the complete textile itself. Then it should be selectively conductive. That is, if I want it to be conductive during a given time or for a given parameter, it should be selectively conductive for that only single parameter only. Then it should have absorbency and have this purpose to RRBs and is in white is not of much importance to us, but of whatever is in black is of great importance to us for civil engineering textiles or smart textiles. Am I audible?
Yes, sir, you're audible.
Okay. Now, if you look into these textiles, we want to apply them into civil engineering. At present or up to past, say 10 years ago, civil engineering was all about design and constructing of various private or public works. But the present world and the future says that civil engineering will not be only about designing and constructing of public works, but will be a practice of improving and maintaining build and natural environment to enhance the quality of our life. So this present scenario and the future scenario has made us look into various different possibilities of using different materials which were not conventionally conducted or conventionally considered to be civil structures or civil materials. So that is where your conductive textiles or conductive geotextiles come into picture. And they have to look into various criteria. First is the environmental criteria. The second is the solution of the developing global population. They have to be pillars of local economy as well as creating and maintaining a complex infrastructure wherein you have known as a planar product, which is a polymeric material used with soil, rock, earth, or any other geotechnical material, which is part of a man-made project, structure, or system. And if you look into the various types of geosynthetics, these are the basic types of geosynthetics which are mentioned out. There are a lot of other varieties also, but these are the common ones which we heard of on day-to-day life. That is geotextiles, geogrids, geonets, geocells, geopipes, geomembranes, geosynthetic clay liners, geofoams, and geocomposites. On purpose, I have not put in electrokinetic geosynthetics. That is a different part when we talk of geosynthetics. Now, if you look into the graphical representation of geotextiles, these are only generic based graphical representations as per Indian Society, the International Geosynthetic Society. And these are not very specific to a company. If you talk of any company, a company has a specific graphical representation of geotextiles. So these are only generic, similar to what we have as generic medicines. So these are generic graphical representations of various geotextiles available in the market. So this GEK on the top is electrokinetic geosynthetic or conductive geosynthetics, what we will be looking into the development and its applications. So this is a view out of the different types of geotextiles available in the market. The first four are non-woven geotextiles, and the later three are basically woven geotextiles available in the market commonly. Now, if you look into smart conductive geotextiles can be looked into from three forms or 3 point of views. First is the shift from passive functionality as a textile to an active behavior, where we started using textiles into and we started calling them geotextiles or geosynthetics. The second is where geosynthetics were converted into smart textiles, that is result of integration of microelectronics into textiles to endow the materials with new properties. These properties could be very specific according to the application of the geosynthetic, or could be very specific depending on the point of application of those geosynthetics. But smart conductive geotextiles is basically a successful marriage of traditional textiles and clothing technology with different branches of material science, structural mechanics, sensors and actuator technology, advanced processing technology, and artificial intelligence and biology. If you look into the definition as given as per Indian International Geosynthetic Society, a smart textile is defined as a textile that can sense and react via an active control mechanism to environmental conditions or stimuli from mechanical, thermal, chemical, electrical, or magnetic sources. So all these sources, you could be mixing them up together into a single textile, which obviously will become a difficult thing to create, but you could make a textile to be very specific to a specific stimuli of, say, magnetic field or a thermal temperature or a chemical reaction or an electrical input or a mechanical stress or strain formation, or to a particular gas when I talk of environmental applications for the smart textiles. Now, if you talk of types of smart textiles, there are basically three types of smart textiles. One is a passive smart textile, an active smart textile, and an ultra smart textile. If you talk of passive smart textile, it is basically having only sensors which will only sense out a particular environmental parameter or a specific parameter, which could be stress, which could be strain, which could be heat, which could be electric impulse, which could be a gas, that is omission of CO2 or omission of CO in an environment. It could be very specific. Then you can have an active smart textile, where you have a sensor and an actuator which will sense and react to that environmental stimuli. That means it will give you an indication that something is going wrong or something is going right. So it could be in the form of a color change in the textile, or it could be in the form of an electrical impulse being given by the smart textile to you onto your feedback system. It could be in any form. The third is an ultra smart textile, which can sense, react, and adapt themselves to the environment. Here is where all your artificial intelligence and all your cognition and reasoning comes into picture, along with some backhand computer programming also. So these textiles could be considered to be a walking computer or a walking wearable computer on your dress. So it could be as thin as your shirt which you are wearing, or as thick as your t-shirt or your denim pants which you are wearing. Now, if you look into conductive textiles, there is one process which is very much necessary, which is required to be understood, is electrokinetics. Whenever we apply conductive, and when electrokinetics is basically made up of these 7 processes. That is, first is electroosmosis, as everyone may be knowing of, which is a water flow or pore pressure change or a volume change. You may have electrophoresis being occurring, which is particle movement or particle orientation. You may have ion migration, that is solute movement in the form of water being moving or the ions being moved in the soil. You may have electrolysis, which is the evolution of oxygen and nitrogen from the water which is present in the soil, and thereby causing some pH changes. Then you may have heating, that is a Joule heating on the electrodes, that is the textile itself, and resistive heating on the soil. Then you may cause oxidation or soil cementation or reduction in soil plasticity. Then you may have a reducing reaction, which will give you electrowinning of metal ions. This is basically the same process which is used when you are doing electroplating of your utensils or electroplating of your jewelry. So that is the same process which is used. Now, if you talk of the objectives which we need to look into when we are trying to develop a conductive geotextile, is it should be able to distribute the current. That is, whatever be the length or width of the geotextile that you are to apply on field, it should be able to distribute that current uniformly without a large drop in the voltage. That is, sufficiently high voltage should be maintained throughout the geotextile or throughout the applied conductive geotextile. It should be able to maximize the effective area of contact of the surface. Third thing, it should be able to optimize the total amount of conductive materials, because in some cases conductive material is really costly, and because the process of the conductive geotextile itself is a costly product. And also it should allow polarity reversal if required on site. Now, if you look into the development of this textile, depending on the design options of the material and where do you want to use this textile, you may have 5 different options of development of this. If you are talking of somewhat stabilization of your soft soils, then I require my corrosion resistant conducting materials. If I am talking about removal of water or removal of salt from my soil, in that case, I may purposely require some of my conducting elements to be corrodable so that it can react with the salt in the soil and give it a stable form. If you are talking about strengthening along with dewatering of deep soils, fabric material to be incorporated into your conductive geotextiles. If you are talking about strengthening as well as removal of water from a single non-woven filter fabric to be combined with a woven or a knitted fabric. If you are talking about specifically deep dewatering of deep soil layers of or thick soil layers wherein we are using PVD drains, in that case you may require a drainage media for fluids. So depending on a specific application, you may require to develop your GKE or EKG, what is known as electromagnetic geosynthetics. So there is no given single solution for all your problems. You have to modify your GEK materials depending and specifically upon your application. If you talk of the first application, which I told you as heavy metal removal, even in that, what type of metal are you planning to remove from the soil? What is the concentration of that metal in the soil will also affect the type of conducting material that you have to choose when you are developing your GEK. If you look into the textiles are given some specific names, which is shown here. You have monofilament yarns, you have multifilament yarns, you have staple fibers, you have staple yarns, staple film monofilaments, and slit film multifilaments. I am being very specific for this because later on I am going to show you how to develop a conductive geotextile within your small labs also, or within your small laboratory available materials, and you can conduct various or lot of different experiments which can be copper wire throughout your shirt, and you can have 100% conductive fiber going on. You can have an isolated conductive fiber going through the knitting of the material. You can have a coated or metallized fiber, that is, you have a cotton fiber and then you coat it with some conductive material, again which I'll be showing you in the presentation also. So how do you coat a non-conductive fiber into a conductive fiber? You can have a coated or a metallized yarn, which we have used in one of the works. And you can have a yarn combining conductive and non-conductive fibers, that is creating what we know as a yarn, which has a central core which is conductive, and the core all around it may be a non-conductive fiber. So these are some of the images. Now, if you see image D, these are two simplest examples of a stent which is used for your bypass surgery. The top one is a single yarn stent. The bottom one is a double yarn stent, because the black yarn which is there is coated with a medication which is known as a medicated stent. These are all SEM images of your created textiles. Now, if you go to the development, and this is very specific to some 4 or 5 GK developments which we carried out at MS University of Vadodara during my doctorate work, is using a basic cotton fiber, that is 1.5 denier, which is the diameter of the fiber, and 44 mm is the length of the fiber. So this is the fiber which is available in the market, raw fiber available. This fiber was taken onto a miniature card machine, and using this miniature card machine at a rotation of 240 rpm, this fiber was converted into a slubber. Slubber is a very soft thread which is created on this slubber, something similar to your divet, what is used for your puja. It is not a yarn as yet. You can easily pull it off, or it can easily break off. So that is what is found on a slubber using this card machine from your raw fiber. Once you are done with that, then you take it to a speed frame, to which you do a roving process, and that the machine is known as a roving machine, and the material available is known as a roving material. This basically increases the density of the fiber in the yarn and increases the tensile strength of the fiber. So this is the machine which is used to convert the slubber into a roving material. So on the opposite side of that, you have the slubber. Then it starts rotating on this, and you get the roving material on these yellow spindles. So this is the unwoven material, which is the slubber, which is fitted onto the speed frame for roving. So if you can see, this is something like a divet for your puja only, very soft and very easily breakable. You need not look into this material for any other purpose. So this is another view of that miniature card frame machine. Sorry, miniature ring machine. Now, what we had used was, this was a 44 gauge, this was the slubber, and we used a 44 gauge or a 0.08 mm copper wire to be encapsulated within this fiber. When this is the view of the copper fiber that we use, or copper wire. I can at present call it wire only, because fiber is really small and is mentioned in there only. So I am calling it as a wire still, though it is very small in diameter. And this is the end product which we got. Now if you see, you can see there is a weaving of the copper thread onto the slubber, which has increased the stiffness of the fiber itself and has increased the tensile strength of the fiber also. After that, this was taken onto a hand loom. Now this could be taken to a bigger machine, but we had a limited material, we had to use a hand loom only, because so because the cost was very high, and then in that case the cloth which was being woven was 3 meters in diameter, which was very difficult to be used. So that is why we went on to a hand loom. Later on, we did do an experiment on a mechanized machine also, and we did create a 3 meter wide conductivity. On a hand loom. Now, if you are seeing, there is a black steel one. Hello.
Hello.
Yes, ma'am.
So your screen is not audible, so kindly share your screen again.
Okay. Till what time did you see the screen?
So just 2-3 seconds ago only it went.
Okay, 2-3 seconds ago. Okay,
Yeah.
no issues. Okay. This was
Now your screen is audible. Yes, sir.
This was visible to you?
Yes, sir. This was visible.
Okay. So this is what we have created as a woven geotextile. The black or grayish thread which you are seeing here is basically a steel filament which we imported from England at a cost of somewhere like 700 pounds per kg. So you will be seeing this very. The things given on the slide are basically specification of how we have woven this textile. That is, you have a 2 held shaft and a 36 reed count. That is, the number of counts of fibers in this direction is 36, and the repeat thing in this direction is 42, and in this direction it is every 32 stitches you have a repeat of the steel fiber. Details of that. And if you look into the polyester yarn, it was having a diameter of 44.3 tex, and the steel filament having a diameter of 210.7 tex. So round about 5 times thicker than your polyester yarn. This is another one which we have woven. Here the amount of steel fiber used was higher, and in one complete direction we used only steel fiber, and in the other direction we used only polyester yarn. So it was not a mix, it was yarn, that is the copper coated cotton, copper embedded cotton yarn along with the steel filament. So you can see the change in the color of the textile in the two things. So this was polyester yarn, pure polyester yarn with the steel filament. Here this is a copper yarn, that is within the polyester yarn we had the copper wire, and you can see the stiffness of the fabric also. The fabric is able to stand by itself because of the stiffness of the copper wire, and that is a disadvantage when I am using a thick copper wire. So it reduces the flexibility of my geotextile when I want to use it on field. If anyone is interested, I can give in the extra details if you can contact me personally for all these things. So these are various textiles which are created. This is again copper yarn and steel filament, but with a different thickness of the yarn being used. This is another one where cotton yarn and steel filaments have been used in both the ways. So you have approximately equal conductivity in both directions. Again, all these were created for very specific applications only. So depending on applications, the weaving of the textile may be changed. Or if you want to go in for commercial criteria will give you either conductivity in one direction or conductivity in both directions. So you'll have to select one out of the two depending on your application. So if you are to measure only one stimuli on your site, say water or stress or strain, then you can go in for a one-dimensional conductive textile. But if you are planning to measure 2 or 3 things together, then it is better to go in for a dual conductive or 2-directional conductive textiles for your application. So this is the copper wrapped polyester yarn used in both the direction. Now you can see how stiff it has become at the ends. So this is the loose end which we get from the handloom. So it has become very stiff on that section. We were able to get a good amount of conductivity from this as compared to all others, because copper is much more conductive and steel yarn had broken out in some of the sections during the weaving, and we could not locate the breakage, and that is why the conductivity became a bit a questionable mark when we are using steel filament. This is the next thing which you can do, is where I told you about coating of your normally non-conductive yarn into a conductive yarn. So this we have performed on a non-woven textile, but for sure if you are able to do the same thing on a conductive yarn and then use used 2 bases. One is nylon 6, that is the base used for coating the material, and polycarbonate. And the conductive material which was used was, one was emeraldine base and one was polyotoluidine. So these two things, that is the initial emeraldine base and polyotoluidine, are basically the conductive materials. Nylon 6 or polycarbonate are basically the carrier of this to coat it onto the non-woven geotextile, because they require a carrier to coat them onto a non-woven geotextile. I'm giving you the procedure also. This is what was followed when we wanted to create the conductive coated geotextile. That is, you take aniline and into it you add hydrochloric acid, and then you add ammonium persulfate. Once you have done with this mixture, you have to stir it at 5 degrees centigrade and then filter it and wash it with water initially 2 to 3 times, and then you have to wash it with methanol. Once you are done with that, if you dry it out at 50 to 60 degree, very specifically not crossing a temperature of 60 degree plus or minus 1 degree centigrade, then you get a pure polyaniline. In case your temperature control is not good, then polyaniline will not be in a pure, and then you may get some disadvantage with respect to your conductivity of the material. After that, you have to treat it with a 0.5 molar NH4OH for 4 hours, and at the end what you get is a pure emeraldine base. Now this emeraldine base is mixed with nylon 6 and dissolved in formic acid to coat it onto a non-woven geosynthetic. Again, be very careful or be very cautious that the temperature here is very crucial, that you cannot cross 60 degree plus or minus 1 degree centigrade, so that this emeraldine base remains a pure emeraldine base and the conductivity of your textile is good enough. So this is the reaction of the thing which is being explained in the earlier slide. I'm not going into the details. Similarly, we created polyotoluidine. Any reference paper, if you look into creation of polyotoluidine and its synthesis, you will be able to get the complete process of creating polyotoluidine. Then it depends on you whether you want to use nylon 6 or polycarbonate to dissolve it and create a coating for your non-woven geotextiles. In case you want to coat it on a yarn, in that case you will have to immerse your yarn into these solutions for a minimum time period of 6 hours, and then bring out that yarn and dry it out. The only drawback when you are using it with a yarn is you have to be very careful that when you are coating it, there is a uniform coating of the material onto your yarn. Otherwise, the conductivity of the material does not remain uniform. So these are some smart sandwich geotextiles which we created using commonly available non-woven geotextiles and steel mesh. So this is the normal steel mesh which we used for our windows. That was taken, and we used two non-woven geotextiles on the either side. Here we have used again two white available non-woven geotextiles. Here we have used two woven geotextiles being sandwiched with that steel mesh. These are similar examples of various geotextiles being used along with the steel mesh. All these were specific for various applications being used. Okay, sorry. Am I audible?
Yes, sir, you're audible.
My presentation is not working. Okay, okay.
Yeah, it's working now.
Okay, okay. So what was basically done is an industrial stitching machine was used to stitch the steel mesh along with the two non-woven geotextiles. You will not be able to stitch it on a normal sewing machine because of the thickness of the non-woven geotextile as well as the count of the steel mesh. So you'll have to calibrate your industrial sewing machine onto equivalency of your steel mesh count. So you have a spindle there which will exactly match up your stitches into the spaces between the steel mesh only. So whenever you buy the steel mesh for any purpose, you will have to ask them for the mesh size of the steel mesh, and according to that mesh size you will have to calibrate your industrial sewing machine of how to stitch it there. So this is the stitch conductive geotextile which we were able to make, which was known as a smart sandwich geotextiles. Now, if you look into these are the developments. Now we look into the applications. How much time do I have? Hello?
Hello?
Ma'am, how much time do I have?
Sir, you can continue for the next 15 minutes.
Okay, okay, no issues. So these are basically some remediation methods, that is chemical methods, biological methods, and physical methods. We'll be looking into the physical methods only at present, wherein electrokinetics comes in. We'll not be looking into the physical and biological methods. And these are various applications, right from slope stability to slope strengthening, to increasing the slope stability, to retaining structures, to dams, to basements, to underground space stations, to tunnels. Everywhere you are able to apply a smart textile. I have stopped this, but it is happening again. Madam, can you look into that? I have already stopped the annotation, but I think someone is able to annotate.
Hello.
Yes, sir.
Sir, there is one option of security near the participants option below. One strip is there.
Okay.
From that security option, you can click and you can untick the option of annotation.
Participants.
Nearby security option is there.
Security option is there. More.
Not in the more, sir.
Yes, yeah, got it. Disable.
Disable, yes, sir.
Conductive geotextiles. Okay. You can use it for EK reinforcement of soft clay slopes, electroosmosis to consolidate or strengthening your soft soils, dewatering of your mine tailings, stabilization of slopes and cuttings, reduction of liquefaction potential of liquefiable soils, dewatering of fly ash, dewatering of contaminated soils, sludges and sediments, stabilization of gypsum contaminated soils, removal of water, salt from water, and even for ground. Now, whenever we use a conductive geotextiles, what comes into picture, as I told you, is electrokinetics. So this is a very basic cabling and layout of a electrokinetic setup. You have anodes and cathodes, and you are to connect your anodes and cathodes to a eco control unit. The biggest drawback of electrokinetics is that it is using DC current, that is direct current, which at some points needs to be cleared by government officials for use when I'm using it on a open ground. So basically we are combining three effects: a chemical effect, electrical effect, and a hydraulic gradient effect to achieve electrokinetic remediation using these conductive textiles. So in this picture, you can see drains being installed all along and a white pipe being installed. So this is basically for dewatering of your soft soils or dewatering of an area which you think is contaminated with a specific element. This method or this image, as you are seeing, is taken from electrokinetics.co.uk, where this has been very apply up these electromagnetic drain setups so that they can get back the lead from the soil, and then the soil remains uncontaminated. So this is another picture view of the same thing. You can see the control units. There are some parameters which you have to look into when you are applying this method on field, that type of the soil, but those are beyond the scope of this lecture. So if you look into the principle, this is the principle of electrokinetics, where you have electrophoresis, electroosmosis, and electromigration going on together. I'll be going a bit fast. So electroosmosis, you all know, it is transport of pore fluid in soils. Electrophoresis is basically movement of charged particles suspended in a liquid, basically water for our soil. So this is how the charged particles are moving. So you have a negative charge on the soil particles onto which your cations will get attracted, onto which your bipolar water gets attracted. So you found all around each and every soil particles, which is known as a hybridized cation. Now, once your hybridized cation has been created and your bipolarized water has been attached to your cations, the total layer is known as what is known as your double layer. So this is your double layer theory, or double layer around the particles. So what is the space available now between the double layer? Is only the space available for the water to move or the cations to move. And this is where a higher amount of electric potential is required to come across or come over the double layer. So in case you have soils which are very high in, which have a very big double layer, then the amount of DC current to be applied for remediation or dewatering in such cases will be of a higher voltage potential. So now you can apply the positive and the negative electrodes, and you generate an electric field. And this is how the movement occurs. I'll just directly go on to the applications in that case. Okay, so these are the applications. First application is treating sludge or fly ash. Now this is electrokinetics.co.uk, the company which creates these conductive bags. Into these bags, you will put in your sludge or your fly ash, which is in the form of a slurry, and you carbon or steel, and you have a central conductive geotextile, and the complete bag is also a conductive geotextile, and you can apply a current of 60 volt DC. So the cathode, so water starts flowing onto the at the bottom, as well as comes out through the bags also. So you are able to remove water from these bags at a very fast rate. This each bag contains around about 1 ton of fly ash fly ash sludge, which when reduced goes down to somewhere like 300 kgs of fly ash only. Similarly, if you talk of sludge, normally if you are talking about ETP plants give you sludge with around about 60 to 70% of moisture content. You are using at your ETP plant or STP plant, your sludge may have a variation of 60 to 80% of water, which you can remove using these dewatering bags. If you are able to use these bags, or you are able to use the belt press, which I'll be showing you, then this is what you are disposing of. So you are able to regain back a lot of water from these sections, thereby helping you to reduce the volume of your disposable. Just a second. This is, as I told you, for creation of artificial turf agriculture, which is now a very big market in US and developed countries. So these, if you see, are conductive elements which are put over a non-woven geotextiles. You can have them in this form also, or you can have them in forms of strips also. So these are basically used for applying water to your turf at a very required quantity and a required time duration, so that you get a very uniform growth of the turf and a uniform height of the turf. So you can control the height and the density of the turf using these conductive geotextiles. So this is the complete turf agriculture. If you can see, there is a very uniform green color of the turf which has been created, and these are the controllers which you can see at various ends, controlling the voltage applied, so that the amount of water being applied to the turf is controlled in a very specific manner or a specific amount. So this is a cut section of those turf applications. Now, what has been used here is only positive and any negative electrodes. Now, as I told you earlier, was polarity reversal. This is where you use polarity reversal. If you want to apply water, then you apply water at the bottom and make the top section as negative. So water starts moving up towards the turf. But in case you have a very heavy rainfall and you have excess moisture content on the turf itself, then the only thing you have to do is you have to change the polarity of these conductive geotextiles, and whatever is the excess water in the turf will get drawn off at the bottom, which can be collected back and again reused when there is a requirement of water. So this is a very good technology if you are looking into creating your turf in arid regions, where you can collect whatever moisture is being excessively created onto the turf in the mornings due to dew. This has been already applied in some of the big stadiums in US. This is dewatering or waste stabilization ponds, where your waste from the ETP plants or STP plants is directly pumped off with excess moisture content. So you can see in the background you have an excess moisture content where water is starting to collect up. And if you use these conductive textiles, you are able to dry off the complete turf and get back your moisture content or water back. Then you can use it for dewatering and moisture control in MSEWs, that is mechanically stabilized earth walls. In cases you have very heavy rainfalls in some area, you can have 2 layers or 4 layers of conductive geotextiles, and you can apply current or apply DC voltage whenever required. Now, the biggest question which comes to me is, sir, what happens when you apply a DC current to the road? So I'm being very clear. This is only the reinforced road forming happens on the top of this. So whatever water is coming from the road enters into this, and only after that it comes into contact with the conductive textiles. The complete road is not conductive. So not to worry about that anything will happen to your vehicles when anything happens to your road surface. This is when you talk of precious metal sludge. If I don't know how many of you may know, but whenever you want to process 1 kg of gold, how much ore of gold has to be processed is very large. Similarly, when you talk of small diamonds being processed out of mud, large amount of water is used to wash them off. In that case, a large amount of water gets wastage. So this has been created for precious metal sludge dewatering, where the sludge goes out only after checking from the industry. I'll show you a working electrokinetic belt press. The blue thing which you are seeing, and there is a white strip in between. That white strip is a conductive textile. The blue is a belt. So it starts pressing the material in between it and starts releasing out water, and the water comes out of this material, and only the sludge goes out of your company, and the water is regained back for the use in the company. So you can, this is the sludge without the being used. Difference in the moisture content and huge difference in the volume of the material which you are to dispose of. This is electrokinetic stabilization of slopes using conductive geopipes. So if you have any excess water coming into slope, or what we call as what we used to test in 3 conditions for slope stability, where pore pressure was developing inside the slope. These geopipes or conductive geopipes will be able to dissipate those pore water pressure inside your slopes, and you will be able to increase the stability of your. This is the same thing being applied at a where this has been punched, and over which they have installed a conductor. But this could be used in cases you find out that one of the factory or one of industry is contaminating your groundwater table. Then how do you stop that contaminant to come into your groundwater table? So you can basically create an electrokinetic fence all around the source of contamination. So what does this fence do is does not allow this plume of contaminants to enter into your groundwater. So you can have a fence, something similar of this, similar type of this one end on all the 4 sides of the source of contamination. So all your contaminants remain within the localized region, which then can be drawn and conductive pipes here. So these can be steel pipes, these can be conductive elements and thread being tied over it, or they can be coated pipes like this. Now then you have a very unique application is leakage detection in dikes and canals. Now what you are seeing here are 4 different colors, colored fibers created, or what we call as colored fibers in conductive geotextiles being created. And these will give you indications whenever there is a leakage detection. I'll show you the application of it also. So here you can see at this point there is no leakage, and slowly once the leakage has occurred, there is a change in the conductivity of the material due to the conductive elements. So this is at 4th December 2009. This is at 5th December 2009. This is at 6th December 5th December 2009 at 6:24. This was at 12:24, and this is at 5th December at 11:24. So here you can very easily see the blue portion is where the leakage has occurred in this section. So at a given point, you can detect the leakages also. Similar to this, we have conducted this work in MS University also for checking of leakage in canal sections. This is another application where you have a strain strip geotextile on the embankment and it was loaded and the failure occurred, which was very visibly seen in this section. You can see in this section there is a change in the strain color of your conductive geotextiles. So whatever has been used is basically a small impulse of electricity being passed through this strain strip geotextile, and because of the change in the resistance, there is a change in the pattern of the color, which will tell you that there is a change in the using such need to be pre-calibrated for your application, or what type of loads are you expecting for the geotextile to encounter, and then you will be able to create such diagrams which will tell you how much is the strain being formed. So from the change in the resistivity, you will be able to find out the strain or the stress developed in the material below it. This is another application of municipal solid waste dewatering, which was conducted at MS University again, where we dewatered the municipal solid waste, organic waste only, by using conductive geotextiles. No doubt we created the geotextile by winding up GI wire only, and that is why we had to put in multiple elements so that there is a uniform distribution of current in the textile. So this was a layer formed thing, and this was a pipe formed thing where we try to dewater the municipal solid waste. This is another larger application of dewatering of pure clays in a laboratory study. All these pipes which you see are basically conductive geotextiles. The outer are or anodes, and the central one is a cathode. So this is the complete setup at MS University which we had created. This was a reactor for dewatering in the horizontal direction. So these are all dewatering systems for horizontal dewatering. You can have vertical dewatering. The pipe at the bottom is giving out the water from the bottom in case of horizontal dewatering.
Hello.
Hello?
So sorry for the interruption. Actually,
Yeah,
we are getting many questions. So if you could just wind up in next 10
yeah,
minutes.
yeah, not more than 2 minutes.
Okay,
Sure.
okay. Okay,
This
sir.
is where we used it for vertical dewatering. So this was a very 4 and 6 feet height drum created in the lab, and we put in a slurry of soil, and you can see the dewatering which is being taking place. This was the canal testing. The canal was from textiles, then did a concreting over it, and then tested it with the earth resistivity meter. This a section of 12 feet by 6 feet wide. So this is the crack which we created inside it, and we could get a sudden drop into the resistivity which showed that water was leaking inside the canal section. So there are some practical considerations. These are some smart applications which are under development stage, which is a smart shirt. That is a lightweight, durable, washable, integrable shirt for mining application with an inbuilt recipe belt. That is, if you get any poisonous gas inside the mine, this recipe belt will help you to breathe and convert that into oxygen. Then you have a sensory vest, which is an integrated wearable computer, which is being now used, prepared for use with lot of doctors when they go on for some operations. This is the type of integration of geotextile and with respect to semiconductors in high and low conduction state, and iron reservoirs being created around the fabric for such applications. Some future applications can be applications in buildings with photosensitive and chemically responsive materials as facades, with micro or nanomaterials in concrete or as paints for stress sensing, for signal transmissions in damper control using neural networks with cognition systems, processes such as self-healing of construction materials with chemical or repair material with a release mechanism only when some stress or some crack occurs. Okay. Yes, you can shoot your questions.
Okay, thank you so much, sir. We'll start with the question and answer session.
Sure, sure.
What is the specific criteria for selecting geotextile?
Specific criteria for selecting geotextile. Okay.
Yes.
There are basically 4 to 5 various criteria onto which you will be selecting a geotextile for application. One is if you have a very soft soil and if you want to reinforce that soil. Second is if you want to separate out two materials, that is you have a sub base and a base and you don't want it to punch into the sub base, then as a separation, then you can create it for drainage layer. That is if you want to drain out material or drain out water from a particular material, then you can have a combination of any of these two functions together, that is reinforcement and drainage applications being used in roads. So in such applications you may be using any type of geotextile. Again, it will be very specific to the type of soil and the type of loading which is being transmitted onto the geotextile. You may have uniaxial or biaxial or triaxial geotextiles being used.
Okay, so the next question is there any design standard for providing conductive geotextile in field?
At present, I'm sorry, still there are no codes even available for testing of conductive geotextiles, because at present whatever has been used is very specific to a given site. So at present we don't have any testing codes or design mechanisms or design criteria for conductive geotextiles, because applications are so varied that you cannot have a design criteria applicable from one end to the other side. So it is basically a lot of research and a lot of calculations being done for a specific soil or a specific site for creating such conductive geotextiles. And that is the reason you don't have a market of conductive geotextiles at present.
Okay, sir. Now, next question is how can we check effectiveness of conductive textile in ground improvement techniques? Hello? Sir, your voice is breaking. Hello?
Hello?
Yeah, your voice
Is
was breaking, sir. Can you please repeat again?
is it audible now?
Yeah, sir, it's audible now.
Okay. If I give you an example of suppose dewatering of soil, and if you want to check the effectiveness of a conductive geotextile, in that case, what you have to do is you have to apply a given voltage. Say I apply 1 volt per centimeter or 1 volt per 10 centimeter of spacing. Once you apply that, you will note down the moisture content at the starting and moisture content after 1 hour. So whatever is the decrease in the moisture content gives you an idea whether the electrokinetic conductive geotextile is working or not. So again, this will be a trial and error method depending on the soil as to which soil will, suppose if you have clayey soil, then I can for surely tell you that the amount of potential required will be higher of the order of 4 to 5 volts per meter. If you are talking about silts with approximately no clay, then you may be talking of the order of 0.5 to 1 volt per meter of spacing of electrodes. If you are talking of sandy silts and if you want to dewater it, then you may be talking to the term of 0.25 volts to 0.5 volts per meter spacing of your electrodes. So very specifically, you can check it on site with a trial and error. Again, what is the type of electrode that you are taking? That is, if your conductive geotextile is of copper, then for sure your effectiveness is better. But on the other hand, if you are using a carbon-based conductive geotextile, then the effectiveness of that geotextile is lower. So there are a lot of parameters to be looked into when I talk of effectiveness of a conductive geotextile.
Okay, I hope it's clear to the participant now. Now the next question we have from the convener of this FDP, Pooja ma'am. How electrokinetic geosynthetic increases the stability of saturated soft clay?
Saturated soft clay. Okay. See, first thing is very obvious. The moment I talk of or you use the word saturated clay, means the soil is not having enough strength. Now, the moment I start reducing my moisture content, automatically my shear strength goes on increasing. Now, if you want to look into the effectiveness or the application of conductive geotextiles with respect to slopes with saturated soils, then if you are putting in pipes or what we used to place in our dams as horizontal drains. So horizontal drains had a very big drawback that they could get clogged. As opposed to that, if you are putting in conductive geotextiles and you are using them, the pore water pressure distribution can be controlled much more precisely. The second thing, if the geotextile gets clogged, the only thing I need to do is I need to only interchange the polarity and start applying a little amount of water. So automatically the geotextile gets declogged and you can again restart using the same geotextile for the same purpose. I hope I have answered her.
Yes, sir. This question is being followed by another question from ma'am only. Does the application of this technique leave negative impact on original physical and chemical properties of soil?
Okay, very good question. In case you are using say copper and you have not checked your chemical composition of your soil or the chemical composition of the water in your soil, in that case, there are some instances where the heavy metal, that is the copper itself, gets dissoluted into your soil and starts contaminating your soil. So that is why I said that before using any conductive geotextile, you have to be doubly sure what is the chemical composition of your soil and the chemical composition of your water which is there inside your soil. As I told you, when I was telling you about the shooting ranges, there is use of copper electrodes along with the conductive geotextiles. But what are they looking at is we are able to reduce 10,000 milligram of lead from soil at a rate of application of 2 milligram of copper to the soil. And copper is much less carcinogenic as compared to lead. And second, the amount of replacement of the contaminant is of a very big difference order, where you are adding in 2 milligram per kg of soil of copper, you are removing 10,000 milligram of lead from per kg of soil. So you are around about 2,500 times more safer as compared to the original soil. So some pros and cons are there for each and every method. So you have to again look into those parts also. Hello?
Hello?
Yeah, next question.
So the chat box is full of questions. I'll take the last question because
yeah, no issues. You can just mail out those questions to me. I'll just answer them and send it back to you.
Yeah, sure. I'll just take the last question.
Yeah, no
Does,
issues, no issues.
does tensile strength of the fibers affect the shear strength parameters of fiber reinforced sand?
Fiber reinforced sand.
Yes.
Okay, this is nothing to do with conductive, but if you are talking about the tensile strength of the fiber and there is no cementing material inside your sand, if you say sand, there is no cementing material for sure, and you are only putting in fibers. So fiber will basically be acting with the sand on the basis of friction. So if you are talking about a jute fiber, for example, or if you are talking about a polypropylene fiber, these two fibers totally are two different things in case of the tensile strength itself. In that case, it is very difficult to say whether the tensile strength of the fiber is of any play. If I talk of jute, jute will have a good amount of strength initially, but as time goes, it will start losing its strength, and then it will not affect the shear strength of your sand. But on the other hand, if you are talking about of polypropylene fibers, if properly kept away from sunlight and UV light, will remain in the sand as it is. In that case, their tensile strength will surely affect the shear strength of your sand. But on the other hand, you have to think of that you are adding and the length of the fiber you are adding. If you are adding long fibers, it will not give you any advantage with respect to the shear strength. If you are adding very large diameter fibers, again, it will not give you a very large difference in your shear strength. But if you are using fine and small fibers into your sand, then for sure, it will give you some change in the shear strength of your soil, of your sand. Sorry.
Okay, thank you so much, sir. We'll wind up the session here only.
Sure.
Thank you, sir, for the informative session and for showing us the world of fibers. The entire flow of the presentation, right from the classification of fibers, selection for usage to the capability of fibers, was very captivating. The smart textiles and their use for ground improvement is a very vast topic, and we are glad to have had a chance to get an overview from you. I once again thank you for the session. I take this opportunity to thank our Honorable Chairman, Honorable Trustee Madam, Principal Sir, Dean Academics, Dean Admin, and HOD for their continued support. I also thank our organizing committee for these sessions. And last but not the least, our participants for patiently listening to the sessions and giving your valuable feedback. Thank you so much for joining us. Now there are some instructions for the participants. Tomorrow's first session will start at 10:30 a.m. I request all the participants to join 5 minutes before. There will be 3 sessions tomorrow, and the feedback link will be available after the third session. Thank you so much everyone for joining us. Have a nice day.